So I have this working theory that the Buddha had some quite serious food issues. I have been exploring Eastern philosophy and especially Buddhism for quite a few years now, and every time I heard the account of the Buddha's enlightenment, and perhaps as someone with problem issues around food myself, I instantly connected with him as somebody who himself suffered from extreme parts of him when it came to food. So the Buddha was a prince and he lived quite a closeted life for the first part of his life. And there's a sense that there was a lot of overindulgence in that life. There was a lot of wealth, he had anything that he needed. And my inkling is that he would overindulge and use food the way I used to create a bit of a kind of comforting fog around himself, where he didn't need to look at the harsh realities of life. Now, the Buddha, for one reason or another, decided that he needed to really break out of this fog of his previous life and the experience of this overindulgence. And he took to something called asceticism, where he was literally fasting for days and days and days and days on end. His sense was that in order for him to break out of the fog of his previous life, he needed to break his attachment to pleasure and sensuality and really kind of disconnect from his body in many ways. That's my take on it. And so his primary way of doing that, his route to enlightenment, if you like, was through eating almost nothing. I think nothing, actually. Maybe it was just some water. I don't know, having a water fast. Anyway, he came to a point where he literally was on the brink of death. The legend has it that a woman was walking past where he was meditating at that time under a Bodhi tree and saw his skeletal self and felt a deep, deep wellspring of compassion inside herself. This man was about to die, and she had in her hands some, I think, rice pudding, the story says, and of course, maybe in a Tupperware. And of course she thought, I have to offer this to this guy, he'll die otherwise. And in that moment of his meditation, to see this woman arising, he may even have been kind of delirious, almost dying, to see this woman arising with this simple, natural gesture of offering in her hands. In that moment, he decided that he was going to break his fast and take in that very, very vital nourishment into his system. And thankfully, that created the metaphor for what became the moments before his enlightenment. The simple love that she was offering him, the simple nourishment, the taking in of what his body needed. At that moment, also like a gondola or something went past in the river where he was meditating. And it was a guitar with 3 strings inside it being played. And one string was very baggy, very flat, and you might consider that to be the metaphor for his food-foggy, overindulgent previous life. And another string on the guitar was very, very overstretched and tight, and you might consider that to be the restrictive, very controlling part of himself, the dieter, the inner dieter of the Buddha. And then there was 1/3 string, the central string, which was actually somewhere between, very perfectly tuned and tightened, such that when you plucked it, it gave a resonant, beautiful sound. And the plucking of these 3 strings and the contrasts between them gave the Buddha this magical aha moment, combined with the nourishment that he was ready to take in from this woman. And he realized in that moment that the extremes are not going to take us to that place. The extremes are not the way to our enlightenment. It is instead through the dynamic balancing of the different aspects of ourselves and a step-by-step, moment-by-moment, breath-by-breath discovery of what the middle way means for us, whether it's around food, for those of us that struggle with food, or whether it's in different spheres of our lives. How is it that we can find our own inner peace through stepping into our own unique, dynamic middle ways and finding the gentleness and the compassion and the self-care that we need to guide our way and be the light within ourselves, as the Buddha famously said before he died. So I hope you found this really interesting. And if you'd like to read the blog that's associated with this video, let me know, I'll send that to you. That has got some suggestions for finding your own unique middle way when it comes to food. So next week we're going to be sharing about how to give the whole food issue that we have to the divine. So watch out for that, and meanwhile share anything that you feel like sharing with me by posting, liking this video, and I will respond.